I got a question. Could the US defend from an invasion to the homeland? Today we're going to find out. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Thank you for clicking on today's video. You're looking great. And as usual, before we click play on this, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a bit energetic today. I had a lot of sweet potato, man, and I am carved up. Hello. Again. Anyway. Yes. Hello. Before we click play on this, ladies and gents, as usual, would you like to like the video? Probably not, but I'm going to ask you anyway because it's what YouTubers do. All right.
It's the early 1980s, and over the sky of the American heartland, Soviet and Cuban paratroopers begin to fall from the sky.
Wait, did this happen? Okay.
In minutes, thousands of communist invaders have gained a foothold in the
tents
very
up?
heart of America. With World War III in full swing, it's up to a band of plucky teenagers to fight a guerrilla war against the godless commies. If you grew up in the 80s or just plain don't have bad taste in movies, then you're well aware of the action hit Red Dawn, a film
I've never heard of that.
that portrays a Soviet invasion of the United States toward the end of the Cold War. No, we're not talking about the remake. We don't speak of the remake.
Okay.
But film aside, could it really happen? That question was asked by infographics show fan Blazik, who wanted to know if someone were to invade America, could the US pull all its forces home and hold out against a foreign invader? Despite what fiction—
Before we click play on this again and get the answer to the question, what do you guys think? Could it happen? And what would be the result? Let's say, for just hearsay speak, Russia invaded the US. What would be the outcome of that? Let me know your opinion in the comments.
like Red Dawn would have you believe, the United States was never in any danger of an invasion by the Soviet Union, mostly because the Russian people were about as interested in invading the US as Americans were in invading the Soviet Union.
But at the same time, right, why would the US invade Russia? What are they gaining? It's just it's shite over there. There's no need for the US to go anywhere, man. Especially Russia. On the other hand, Russia could gain everything by invading the US. Much better country for one.
Of course, that didn't stop politicians and military officials on both sides using the fear of an evil capitalist or communist invasion from ballooning defense budgets. The saddest fact of the Cold War just might be that despite all the preparations to defend from an invasion by both sides, neither NATO nor the Soviet bloc ever had a single war plan drawn up for an actual preemptive invasion of the other's territory. But another major reason why the US was never under any threat of an invasion is due to its unique place in the world geography. In order for an enemy to get to America, first it must cross two massive oceans. And this geographic fact makes the United States the single most secure nation on Earth. Even today, moving troops and equipment across the oceans is a massive undertaking in terms of both logistics and cost, and very few nations are even capable of attempting the feat. But let's say that the two leading peer competitors to the US decided to join forces and team up against the United States. With all troops returned home from overseas, could the US defend itself against a double-sided assault against it by China and Russia?
I'ma say yeah.
First, the two-power alliance would have to decide on where to strike. For an invasion to be successful, both nations would have to land troops as quickly as possible, and that would require the use of a working seaport. These ports would require good rail and road infrastructure, and must have deep water anchorages so that large cargo ships could dock and disgorge troops and heavy equipment. The need to take and hold major seaports is critical, as aside from a few token forces with a small number of fire support platforms, amphibious landings alone wouldn't be able to deliver firepower fast enough to secure a beachhead. In Normandy during World War II, the success of the landings was largely down to a brilliant deception played out by the Allies, which saw the Nazis concentrate their forces at the wrong landing site. And even when the real landings happened 100 miles away, Nazi commanders were so fooled by Allied intelligence that they ordered their forces to hold their positions, believing
he landed right in behind him. Ah, beautiful.
that the real assault was coming their way any day. The ruse, combined with some whopping tactical blunders by Hitler, allowed the Allies to quickly build a makeshift port facility which let Allied armor and artillery disembark. Had Hitler allowed his commanders to commit panzer reinforcements to the landings, Normandy would have likely ended as a complete catastrophe for the Allies.
But
By the time he cleared reserve panzer units for the assault on the beachheads, Allied logistical units had already disembarked enough tanks to repel the assault. In an invasion of the US homeland, such a ruse would be impossible to pull off. Long-range and satellite surveillance assets would see an invasion fleet days before it made landfall, and its target would be clearly known to the American defenders.
Yep.
Therefore, China and Russia would have to act quickly and decisively, taking major seaports and holding them long enough to disembark a sizable expeditionary force
Look at them
able to
go.
repel American counter-assaults. For China, the only good options for unloading main battle tanks and mechanized artillery would be the ports in LA, Long Beach, Oakland, Tacoma, and Seattle. The LA Long Beach complex would be especially attractive as it's one of the world's largest ports and would allow Chinese forces to disembark very quickly. Unfortunately,
Do you think there's a realistic possibility that this could ever happen? Like, I'm not that smart when it comes to, like, this sort of stuff. This is the whole reason I watch these videos, man, to learn. But in my head and with my limited knowledge, this is what I believe. This is what I think you are if you try to invade the US on land. And hear me out, because this could get quite elaborate, deep. I think you're a complete onion.
these port facilities are also very close to several American air and naval bases, making them easily defended. The Seattle and Tacoma ports, however, are far more vulnerable, as only 5 major American bases are near these facilities. Landing in Washington, though, would mean Chinese forces would have to fight south and into California through easily defended and very mountainous terrain, a tactical nightmare for any Chinese commander. Russian invaders would face an even less enviable job. The American East Coast is home to far more numerous large port facilities, giving the Russian invasion force a greater number of targets to pick from. Unfortunately, the American East Coast is also the most heavily defended, with several dozen major military installations spread out from north to south. The East Coast is also home to America's largest military shipyard.
Why is the East Coast more heavily defended? I thought the West Coast would have been heavier defended, because Russia's right there, man, on the west, you know? And then China's just around the corner. Huh. If Russia was to attack America, right, surely they would go east, or would they come from the west? Huh. Also, question. In the US, out of all 50 states, what do you think would be the hardest one to, like, break down and take over? If you can hear my washing machine in the background, my bad. I think you can only hear it when I speak. It sounds like it's about to take off. Will you chill out? But yes, let me know.
Which would be so heavily protected, it would be suicidal to attempt a landing or assault against them.
Yeah.
Russia's best bet would be to attempt a landing in Mobile, Alabama or Houston, Texas. This, however, would mean Russian forces would have to spend more time out at sea
I thought
and
Texas
move
would be
into
the
the
hardest
Gulf of
one.
Mexico, where they would be surrounded on all sides but the south by major American air bases. For both our challengers, the tactical picture is not looking very good, as the United States simply has no viable landing sites for a major expeditionary force that couldn't be easily defended. China and Russia could opt to coerce or bribe Mexico or Canada into allowing them to
Not
land at their
Mexico!
facilities and launch an invasion into the US itself. This would be by far the best
Well, Mexico wouldn't turn against us, would they?
strategic option for the invasion forces, but in response to the agreement between either nation and the Sino-Russian alliance, the United States would immediately begin a large-scale bombing campaign against port facilities in Canada or Mexico, with every viable port being within easy reach of American bombers. Even before the invasion force crossed the ocean, they would be sailing for ports that have been turned into rubble. Assuming that the US didn't use naval aviation, which it definitely would, the invaders could opt for using ports in South America, well out of reach of most American bombers, and then simply move north to invade through Mexico. Moving through South America's poor rail and road infrastructure, though, would be a nightmare for the invaders, allowing...
Yo, you know what? Facts. And being from China, it's probably made on Temu, mate. So they're probably rolling in on Temu Jeeps. One spring, they go for one pothole or one little hole in the ground, the whole car fall apart in 600 pieces, man. Temu Jeeps ain't gonna make it through Mexican lands, bro.
Road infrastructure, though, would be a nightmare for
Not
the
gonna
invaders,
happen.
allowing plenty of time for the U.S. to simply move blocking forces through Mexico to Panama and then hold off the invasion there.
Yeah.
If, miraculously, though the alliance did manage to land forces in Canada or Mexico, it would face a different tactical nightmare altogether. In Canada, the lack of suitable border crossings would force the invaders to spread out over a large area, or bottleneck and be subjected to endless attacks by American air power.
There you go.
In Mexico, military border crossings would be possible over a far larger area, but enemy forces would be moving through terrain that provided absolutely no cover. American air power would
Bye-bye.
once more devastate any invaders trying to move through
I
the
was going to ask when the Air Force would come into it. Sure, the US Air Force would just whip anyone's ass if they try to do any of this. It's as simple as that.
flat terrain of the US-Mexico border.
Ain't happening, mate.
Geography alone provides the United States with near invulnerability from enemy invasion. But the logistics of the world's militaries proves why the US simply cannot be invaded. An invasion of the American homeland would rely on naval power to get the job done. And right off the bat, no nation on Earth, nor any combination of nations, has the firepower and logistical support needed to carry out such an invasion. The matter is one of historical necessity for the world. Ever since the end of the Second World War, all of the world's major powers have had no need to project military power far from their own shores, except for the United States. The Soviet Union was chiefly concerned with securing its European borders, and in the case of a Third World War, its most vital strategic objectives could all be reached over land. The vitally important oil fields of the Middle East could all be taken via land routes through Afghanistan and Iran, and no navy was needed to hold off NATO forces in Europe. The same was true for Europe's NATO members, while once their mighty navies ruled the way.
Russia's massive, innit? That's why they think they're hard, man. They come in with this big dick energy. That's the problem. Who gave them all that? Who gave them all that? Why they got so much? Can we take some of that off them? Because I don't think they need it. Cut that in half. You see how big their dick is. It's a weird analogy, but just saying, man. Just saying. They think they have all this land. Like, I mean, look at the size of me, man. I'm in there. I'm not even this. I'm right here. See this white line? That's my country right there, bro. And I would whip their ass. By myself.
Waves all over the world, their concerns in the 20th century quickly became resisting a possible Soviet invasion, and for that, no major naval power was needed. In the Atlantic, the Soviets hoped to slow the American response with the use of submarines, but ultimately knew that they could never stop the US Navy and thus never seriously tried. On the other side of the world, China struggles to turn itself into a first world power, and other than resentment towards Japan over its actions in World War II, China has had no real motivations to build a strong navy, at least until now. Much like the Soviet Union and Europe's NATO partners, though, China definitely had no real reason to build a heavy sea lift capability in order to move thousands of troops and heavy equipment across the ocean. On the other hand, the United States is both blessed and cursed by geography. While it's untouchable to invasion thanks to the Atlantic and the Pacific, it also means that in order to project power on the world stage, America has always needed a strong navy. This is the reason that the US has always had a very strong naval tradition, and why it has invested in naval and air transport more than any other nation on Earth. If US troops want to get somewhere, after all, they're certainly not walking there. To even get forces into the US, any invading army is going to need some serious sea lift capability, and no force on Earth comes even close to the US's 125-vessel military sea lift command, which operates a vast fleet of oilers, tankers, and heavy cargo transports. Yet, even this fleet is not enough according to some analysts, and plans—
Bro, it's just cut the— you just end the video here, man. The answer is could the US defend from an invasion of the home? Yes, they could defend it. They don't even need to get off their fucking arse to defend it, man. They do not need to break a sweat to defend it. China coming in here with teaming mobiles, and Russia don't know what day of the week it is, bro.
are being called for that include dramatically increasing the capability of the US's military transport fleets. China has in recent years expanded its landing ship capabilities, with several dozen available to carry troops and heavy equipment. These ships, though, are not meant for global operations and are only designed for cross-strait invasions into Taiwan or to ferry supplies to China's illegal holdings in the artificial islands it built across the South China Sea. A crippling lack of support vessels such as oilers means that China cannot physically get its landing ships across the Pacific, though even if this problem were to be solved, the nation cannot hope to make a contested landing on foreign soil. Again, this is because of China's lack of need for a global expeditionary military force. China's chief military concerns lie with a military invasion and forced repatriation of Taiwan, and thus it has not invested money into developing a true blue water navy. Russia has even less naval transport capability and support vessels, which again is a result of its military objectives being close to home. To compound the two nations' sea lift problems, both nations have no dedicated amphibious assault ships capable of providing close air support and air superiority to landing forces on a contested beach.
So it's just a distance thing then? Because the US is so far away from both countries, it's a distance. Okay, so the reason that they wouldn't, big reason as to why they wouldn't, is a distance thing, but also I think it's a jealousy thing. Jealousy that they would even think about doing it, but also a distance thing because is the reason they would never do it, because they would get humped. Do you think that's the reason that the Russians and the Chinese have resentment towards the US? Is it jealousy? I think it is, man. I think it is. They don't got the same food America got, and that's why they're raging. They don't got brisket. They're over there livid.
In comparison, the U.S. operates 9 of these specialized vehicles, and they will soon be equipped with the F-35 stealth fighter. Projecting air power is in fact the biggest weakness for any nation hoping to invade the U.S., and
Jesus.
China and Russia combined only operate 2 active-duty aircraft carriers of extremely limited capabilities. Russia's infamous Admiral Kuznetsov very publicly had to be towed back to a friendly port after experiencing severe mechanical problems. Without adequate air power, neither nation could expect to secure a foothold on the U.S. mainland. America's air forces are twice as large as both nations combined, and its naval aviation alone is as large as Russia's total air power. If by some miracle either nation could get troops across the ocean to U.S. shores, the lack of air power would reduce the attempted landings to a suicide mission. In the end, not only could the U.S. protect from an invasion of the homeland, but it is currently and for the foreseeable future completely invulnerable to military invasion. Luckily, the U.S., China, and Russia have no desire to fight each other, and there exists no real reason to. Now that you've made it to the end of the video,
how old is this video? Oh, okay, it's 6 years old. Well, it kind of makes sense. Even then, even 6 years ago, I think there might have been a bit of argy-bargy. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, I knew the answer to that before we even clicked play in the video. Yes, America's the US. What? America is the safest country on the planet, brother. And no one is gonna do shit tacky mushrooms. Okay? Anyway, thank you guys for watching to this point. Appreciate you as always. And before you leave, if you haven't yet, please subscribe. I appreciate it. And maybe like the video if you want to do that too. And if you haven't yet, I never ask people to do this because main reason I always forget and hype the video. I don't know what it does, but let's get hyped in here, man. Anyway, goodbye.